So today I'm talking about what I've learned. And what I've learned all came from a class I took the other day. We have a new contract coming out in our market. We have what's called a multi board purchase and sale agreement. And that is covers a whole wide area in our market. Some associations also have their own. So if you're using a different contract, if your agent uses a different contract, this is not going to apply. But most of us use that multi board contract, and it is changing for the first time in several years. So the last time it changed was probably 6 or 7 years ago. And that was our 7.0. That was the second contract I worked with. Well, there was a minor change, I think, after I started. And I started with the 6.0, and then I think we went to 6.1 and then 7.0. So whenever something changes in the law or just, tradition and conventions can change what appears in a contract. So the one thing has changed. I'll save this for last, but we've been talking a lot about the Sitzer Burnett lawsuit all year. That has affected the biggest change, and it's one of the reasons that they really pushed to get this contract out. So that could be included. But there's a few other things that I think everybody should know about. And one is the personal property section. So whenever I send a contract, an offer contract to a buyer to sign so that we can make that offer to the seller, I tell them to make sure they look at the personal property section. That's all the stuff that the buyer expects to go along with the house or expects not to go along with the house. So that might say, for instance, all tack down carpeting is one of those things. If for some odd reason the buyer thinks that the seller is going to take the carpeting with them and they don't, that can be a problem at the walkthrough and at the closing table. If for some reason the seller thinks that they are taking their carpeting with them, and I've never, ever, ever had a seller say they were taking their carpeting with them, but it's there. And the buyer shows up and all the carpeting's gone, that could be a problem at the closing table. So you want to go through and make sure as a buyer that every single thing that's checked is something that you actually want, and everything that's not checked is something that either doesn't exist or you don't want. As a seller, when you get an offer, you want to go through there and make sure of the same thing. Everything that they've checked, they're requesting, is something that you're willing to leave, and everything that they haven't checked is something that doesn't exist, or you were planning not to leave, or you're okay taking with you. We also, I think there's still another section that talks about things that aren't in that paragraph. So maybe it'll say the buyer does not want the pool table, or the buyer wants the fridge in the basement. One of the things that they added was freezers that didn't used to be in there. Sometimes things didn't exist in the time that the other contract was written, like Ring doorbells are now in the contract, Nest thermostats, things like that. If you are planning on taking your Ring doorbell with you and replacing it with the Home Depot $9.75 version, that's something that could really tick a buyer off if they were expecting to have it. So that all needs to be detailed. So you want to make sure on both sides that you're really going through and checking each one of those things, and it is expressed in the contract, not later on. The next thing that came up in this contract is kind of the as-is clarity. And we had, so going back to when I started, we were coming out of the crash. Sellers had no strength, no power. There were 1 million houses for sale, and there were only a few buyers who could qualify. And so those buyers had all of the strength. So first they would negotiate the sellers way down on the price, and then they would do an inspection, and they would come in with a laundry list of things that they wanted the seller to fix. I had one time, it was the stopper in a bathroom sink that the buyers wanted the seller to replace. One time it said that the incorrect screw was holding the faceplate on a light switch. And they wanted that changed out. So it got ridiculous. There was a meme that showed a doorbell and it said, inspection report, doorbell is broken, buyer wants entire wiring replaced, plumbing, painting, and a jacuzzi tub. And that's pretty much what it was like. So when they redid the contract and did the 7.0, they said, we want to stop this nonsense of asking for silly things from buyers. Now, I always tell my buyers, when you do an inspection, if your inspector is doing a good job, most houses, you're going to think it needs a gas can and a match. His job is to, or her job is to point out every little thing that's wrong. Most of that is your to-do list. If there's something glaring, something that changes how you feel about the house, something that changes what you would be willing to pay for the house, then we ask the seller to take care of it. Or if it's something that, is really a safety issue and the seller needs to take care of before transfer, a gas leak. Recently, there was a water leak and the sellers just, of course, fixed it. So things that are urgent get taken care of. Things that are serious get taken care of. Other than that, most of the time, you're not going to ask for anything. So our last contract detailed pretty specifically what could be asked for and what couldn't. However, a lot of buyer's agents and a lot of buyers apparently didn't read that paragraph. So we would get under contract with them. They would say that they were going to take the property as is. Now, according to that contract, as is meant you could still have an inspection, but you weren't going to ask for them to take care of anything. If anything came up that you were dissatisfied with and it was serious enough, you would kill the contract and walk away from the house and get your earnest money back. So that was the way it was supposed to be, but people were not following those rules. They were getting under contract. Sellers were taking their home off the market. And after inspection and after losing a week's market time, they were coming back with, we need the $25 outlet replaced in the kitchen. So in this contract, you have three options. You can take it the way it used to be with an inspection and the right to ask for anything to be repaired. Second option is to take it with an inspection, but you are absolutely not going to ask for anything to be repaired. And the third option is that you can take it as is and waive inspection. Now, personally, I only recommend that people waive inspection if they are planning to knock the house down or if they are themselves a contractor who knows exactly what they're looking at and is willing to take on anything that might be wrong that they can't see. I don't think that most typical homeowners should consider waiving inspection. You are protected with the as is, we're not going to ask anything, and so is the seller. If something in that case comes up and there's a $25,000 foundation liability, you can kill that deal, or the seller might step in and say, hey, any reasonable buyer is going to ask for this. Let's negotiate. So those are the options there. And then the third thing that was added is as a result of that Sitzer-Burnett lawsuit that we've been talking about all year, the buyer's agent compensation was removed from the MLS. It's no longer proactively offered by sellers and has been included by an addendum in the contract up to this point. Now it is inside the contract. So in that contract, most buyers likely will ask the seller to pay their agent or to pay their agent's brokerage. And it could be a percentage, it could be a dollar amount. That is going to be the amount that buyer has negotiated with their broker, and they have signed an agreement to pay their broker that amount. So what they're asking the seller to do is include it in the price of the house. And that lets them finance it. That lets them not come out of pocket. It makes everything much more affordable for the buyer and really doesn't cost the seller anything, because that price is going to reflect whatever whatever they need to subtract from it. So a seller needs to look at what their net is going to be from each offer. If there are multiple offers, you need to look at them in that context. And most of the time, I think that's how buyers brokers are going to be paid. That's how it's been since August in every transaction that we've been a party to on either side. If you say no, or you want to reduce the amount that's going to the buyer broker, then that you need to know that that's something the buyer is now going to have to pay out of their pocket in addition to buying your house. Many buyers can't or won't do that. So you're going to want to look at it as a whole offer and look at everyone in that context. So that's what's included and changed in this new contract. Make sure that you look very carefully at the contracts, especially over the next few months as we're all getting used to it. And if you're working with an agent who's not on a team or doesn't have a close, experienced broker working with them who doesn't sell a lot of houses, this might be the first time they're even seeing this contract. So you want to make sure that you are paying attention, especially to those three parts, and that it reflects what you are actually wanting to offer. So if you have any questions about it, just drop them in the comments. If you want to ask me a question that you don't want to put in the comments, then just reach out to me and I'm happy to answer anything I can. We're looking forward to it. It is a next level clarity and another page. I always say we bought our first house. We had a 1-page contract and now it is 14. So pretty exciting stuff. And we're looking forward to filling out as many of these contracts and receiving as many as we possibly can. So see you next week.